Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping right into something, well, delicious, but maybe a bit confusing. Which of those popular Indian-inspired flatbreads you find everywhere in Malaysia are actually, the healthier options?
Yeah, this is a great topic, especially since the sources we're looking at really focus on mindful eating, particularly with local Malaysian food.
Which can be amazing, but let's be honest, often pretty high in salt and sugar, right?
Exactly. So knowing where you can make a slightly better choice, like with the flatbread that comes with your meal, that can make a real difference.
Okay. So our sources talk about quite a few. Appam, Poori, Chapati, Roti Cannai, and Naan are all mentioned. They seem to be the common ones.
That's right. But the analysis, it really narrows down pretty quickly to three main players when we're talking about comparing health profiles.
And those are Chapati, Roti Cannai, and Naan.
Precisely. Our mission today is basically to figure out how these three stack up against each other health-wise.
Okay, let's do it. So, the big question. Which one comes out on top? Is there a clear winner?
Well, it turns out the answer isn't just about the flour they start with. It's much more about, how they're cooked and what else goes into them.
Right, right. Okay, so let's maybe start with the good news then. Is there one that the sources point to as the best option?
Yes, definitely. Chapati. The sources consistently frame chapati as the benchmark, the healthiest choice among these popular options.
Okay, Chapati. What makes it the winner?
It really comes down to two main things. First, what it's made of. Typically, it's whole wheat flour.
Whole wheat. Okay, so that means more fiber.
Exactly. You get a good balance of carbs, some protein, and crucially, that higher fiber content compared to breads made with refined flour. Plus, it's generally low in fat.
Now, when they say whole wheat, is that always like 100% whole wheat? Because sometimes labels can be a bit tricky.
That's a fair point.
Mhm.
The sources sort of present the traditional chapati as being predominantly whole grain. While, variations exist everywhere, its strength in this comparison comes from that whole wheat base and the fiber it provides.
That makes sense. Fiber is always a plus.
Yeah, helps with digestion, blood sugar stability,
Yeah.
all that good stuff.
And you mentioned low fat. Does the cooking method play a role there? How is chapati usually cooked?
Ah, yes, that's the second key factor. It's cooked on a griddle.
A griddle, like a flat top.
Exactly. The source describes it as a flat, solid cooking surface. Could be cast iron, steel, ceramic. The important part is that it's usually cooked dry, or maybe with just a tiny bit of oil sometimes, but generally dry heat.
So no deep frying, no vats of oil involved.
None at all. That dry heat cooking on the griddle is what keeps the fat content really low. So you've got the healthy base ingredient, the whole wheat, and a healthy low-fat cooking method. That combination is why it's the winner.
Okay, got it. Chapati, whole wheat plus griddle, healthier choice. Simple enough.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, before we get to the less healthy ones, you mentioned Appam and Poori were also listed initially. Why don't they feature much in the comparison? Should we just ignore them?
Well, it's mainly about focus. For this specific comparison, Appam is often made from rice flour, sometimes fermented batter. It's just a different kind of thing nutritionally.
Right, not really a direct comparison to the wheat-based flatbreads.
Exactly. And Poori is that small, puffy bread, which is typically deep fried itself, actually, so it wouldn't fare well in a health comparison either.
Ah, okay.
So the sources zero in on chapati, naan, and roti canai because they're sort of the main flat, often wheat-based breads served with meals, and their cooking methods create a really stark contrast.
Makes sense. Stick to the main contenders. Okay, so if chapati is the gold standard because it lacks things like added fat, let's talk about the flip side, Roti Cannai.
Ah, roti canai.
The sources say it's super popular, maybe the most popular, but also the most unhealthy.
That's the unfortunate truth, yes. It's a classic example of taste and popularity not lining up with nutrition.
So what makes it so bad?
It boils down to one really critical detail in how it's often made. It's frequently deep fried.
Deep fried. Okay, that word is never good in a health discussion.
Never. That single step just blows any potential health benefits out of the water. You're talking a huge spike in saturated fat and calories.
So even if the dough itself wasn't too bad to start with, the frying just ruins it.
Absolutely. And often the dough itself is already loaded. That flaky layered texture Roti Cannai is famous for.
Yeah.
That comes from folding in layers of fat, could be margarine, could be ghee into the dough before it even hits the heat. And then it often gets that final bath in hot oil or more fat on the griddle.
Wow. So it's fat layered in and then often cooked in more fat.
Pretty much. It's designed for that rich texture and taste, but the nutritional cost is really high.
Is it always, always deep fried, though, or is that just the traditional way? Could you technically make a healthier version?
It's a good thought experiment. But the sources are really talking about the Roti Cannai you typically order, the standard product at a mama stall or restaurant. That version is defined by its preparation method, including the significant amount of fat.
So changing the cooking method would kind of make it not Roti Cannai anymore.
Kind of, yeah. You might end up with something more like a parota, maybe, but you'd lose that specific texture people expect from Roti Cannai. So for practical purposes, when you order it, you should assume that high-fat, often deep-fried preparation.
Man, that's tough to hear when it's apparently the crowd favorite.
It is. But that's why this kind of mindful awareness is important.
Definitely. Okay, so Roti Cannai is pretty much off the table if health is the priority. What about the middle ground? You mentioned Naan. The sources say exercise caution.
Yes, naan is. It's more nuanced. It sits somewhere between the clear health winner, chapati, and the clear loser, Roti Cannai.
Why the caution? I mean, isn't Naan also a flatbread? The sources initially suggested it might use whole wheat flour, like chapati.
Well, that's where things get a bit complicated between maybe the ideal or traditional version and what's commonly served. While some naan can be made with whole wheat, a lot of the naan you get commercially, especially outside of home cooking, is made mostly or entirely from refined white flour, maida.
Ah, okay. So straight away, if it's white flour, you're losing the fiber benefit that chapati has.
Precisely. Less fiber, and it'll spike your blood sugar more quickly, higher glycemic index. So the base might already be less healthy.
And then, I'm guessing there's more to it.
Oh, yes. Then you have the additions. Naan is known for being soft and, well, delicious, partly because it's often quite rich with butter or ghee.
Brushed on top.
Brushed on top, sometimes worked into the dough, too.
Hmm.
It's usually a pretty generous application to give it that characteristic texture and flavor, and that means adding saturated fat.
So, potentially refined flour plus added butter or ghee. That's the double whammy causing the caution.
Yeah, that's the main nutritional concern, yes.
And how is naan cooked? Not on a griddle like chapati, right?
No, it's traditionally cooked in a tandoor.
The clay oven.
Exactly. A cylindrical clay oven, super hot, usually using charcoal heat. Now, while the tandoor uses intense dry heat, which sounds good,
There's a butt coming.
there's a but.
Hmm.
That intense heat means the dough often needs that coating of fat, the ghee or butter, to prevent it from drying out completely and to give it its typical soft texture. So the cooking method itself almost necessitates the added fat.
I see. So even though it's not deep fried like Roti Cannai, the tandoor cooking combined with the need for added fat makes it less healthy than the dry griddled chapati.
You got it. Significantly better than Roti Cannai, for
Yeah.
sure. But still nowhere near as lean and fiber-rich as a good whole wheat chapati.
Okay, this is making a lot more sense now. We have chapati, whole wheat, dry griddle, low fat, high fiber, the clear winner.
Right?
Then Roti Cannai, often layered with fat, frequently deep fried, the one to avoid for health.
The riskiest yet.
And Naan, potentially refined flour, cooked in a tandoor but requires generous butter or ghee, needs caution.
That sums it up perfectly. It really highlights how the cooking technique and the additions, they just dramatically change the health profile, even if you start with similar basic ingredients.
It's not just the flour, it's the whole process.
Well, absolutely. That preparation method is often the deciding factor.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. We've compared the breads. What does this actually mean for you, the listener, when you're trying to eat mindfully, especially in the context of Malaysian food? Why is this choice important?
Well, think back to what we said at the start. Malaysian dishes, while incredibly flavorful, can often be high in salt, sugar, sometimes coconut milk, which adds fat.
The curries, the sauces.
Exactly. So if your main dish, your curry or whatever, is already packing a punch nutritionally, maybe high sodium, maybe rich.
Then adding a deep-fried Roti Cannai on the side is like doubling down on the unhealthy stuff.
Precisely. You're adding a significant load of saturated fat and calories onto an already rich meal. It's kind of like damage control. Choosing the chapati in that situation is your strategic move.
Okay, I like that framing. Strategic eating.
Yeah. It lets you enjoy the flavors of the main dish, use the bread to soak up the sauce like you want to, but you're minimizing the extra fat and calories you're taking in with the bread itself.
So the lesson isn't just chapati good, Roti Cannai bad. It's about understanding why and seeing how the preparation, the added fats, the frying, how those things can completely overshadow the basic ingredients.
That's the core takeaway. You have to look beyond just bread and think about how it got onto your plate. What happened in the kitchen? Was it fried? Was it loaded with ghee?
It really makes you think differently about ordering food, doesn't it? You're not just choosing ingredients, you're choosing cooking methods.
You are. And it brings up that question of purpose. What do you want the bread to do? If it's just a vehicle for the curry, chapati does that job perfectly well and healthily.
But if you're looking purely for that rich, flaky, indulgent texture,
And then Roti Cannai delivers,
hmm
but you have to be aware of the nutritional trade-off you're making, a big one.
right. Okay, fantastic breakdown. So just to summarize the choices one last time for everyone listening, your best bet, according to the sources, is chapati low-fat, high-fiber, cooked dry on a griddle.
Thumbs up for chapati.
Then there's roti canai, super popular, but generally the unhealthiest because it's often deep-fried and layered with fat.
Handle with extreme caution, or maybe just avoid if health is top priority.
And naan is in the middle. Exercise caution. It's cooked in a tandoor, but usually needs plenty of butter or ghee, and you need to watch out for whether it's made with refined white flour.
A definite maybe, leaning towards be careful.
Excellent. Okay, before we wrap up, any final thought for our listeners to chew on?
Well, yeah, building on that Roti Cannai point,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that the sources identify the most popular choice as also the unhealthiest one. That's really interesting, isn't it? It says a lot about our choices sometimes, prioritizing that immediate satisfaction or texture over maybe the longer-term health impact.
The pull of deliciousness is strong.
It really is. So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. If the most popular flatbread gets its appeal from hidden fats and frying, what other popular local foods that you love might have similar hidden health traps? Think about your regular favorites. What cooking steps or ingredients might be bumping up the fat, sugar, or salt without you even realizing it?
Become a bit of a food detective for your own diet.
Exactly. How could you maybe get some of that flavor or satisfaction you enjoy, but in a slightly healthier way? It's something to think about next time you're ordering or cooking.